letting the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, know that he accepts her original invitation to talk with a joint Congress State of the Union address on January 29th. And we've been sharing with you parts of that letter. I want to read the final paragraph because it kind of sums it up. I look forward to seeing you on the evening of January 29th in the chamber of the House of Representatives. It would be very sad for our country if the State of the Union were not delivered on time. And then now I'm going to go to the next bit of information here from our producer, Chad Pergram, keeping us informed of what the next steps are. So it's still going to be Speaker Pelosi's call, and here's why. The House and Senate still must approve a concurrent resolution approving the use of the chamber for the State of the Union and authorizing the president to speak before a joint session of Congress. But the president now skipping over the second letter. Telling him that perhaps it weren't going to happen, but not completely canceling it, but accepting that January 3rd letter, which he then points out also in his, that, it was long after the government had shut down. So for her to then dip in and say she was worried about security, and I'll add again, she did not check with the Secret Service or DHS on that. Joe, I see you nodding.
You ought to. I mean, one of the things that would be very important is if you're going to make statements, which, I've sat in this spot before. I've made some statements, and I've got tweets, and I get emails that say, "Are your facts correct?" These facts are.
No, that never happens.
I know it never happens. It probably has never happened to you,
no.
But it actually did happen to me one of the first times I was here, and it really put me on alert to say, make sure you understand what you're talking about before you talk about it. Make sure you have your facts correct if you're going to make a statement that is verifiable. And I think it lends credibility to the position that you've taken. And so in Speaker Pelosi's case, you have that about the security, which really isn't an issue.
I don't know how she thought she was going to go away with that.
So can I just talk about...
They're both playing a game.
Can I talk about the deal-making that's going on right now? The deal-making is not really about whether or not we're going to see a State of the Union or Nancy Pelosi can use military transport or anything. The deal-making is about the government shutdown right now. Right. And so now my question is, where are these two in their relationship and their ability to do a deal? John Roberts is about to join us now from the North Lawn. And, John, it just got interesting yet again. But at the center of this is opening the government. What difference is this going to make in the overall picture?
I don't think that this will make any difference in the overall picture of opening the government. I mean, that all depends what happens in the Senate later on today. But now the president, and we knew that the president was likely going to make this move because we were told yesterday that the president wanted to fulfill his constitutional obligation to deliver the State of the Union address as scheduled next Tuesday. So now he has codified that with a letter back to Nancy Pelosi saying that he plans to be there next Tuesday night. Security was the reason why Nancy Pelosi had originally asked the president to postpone or deliver the State of the Union in writing. The president says in the letter, quote, "I was contacted by the Department of Homeland Security and the United States Secret Service to explain that there would be absolutely no problem regarding security with respect to the event. They have since confirmed this publicly." We had that reporting last week. Accordingly, he continues to write, "There are no security concerns regarding the State of the Union address. Therefore, I will be honoring your invitation." They missed an R there. "And fulfilling my constitutional duty to deliver important information to the people in Congress of the United States of America regarding the state of our union. I look forward to seeing you on the evening of January 29th in the chamber of the House. It would be so very sad for our country if the State of the Union were not delivered on time, on schedule, and very importantly, on location." So what this does now, Harris, is this firmly whacks the ball back into Nancy Pelosi's court. Mm-hmm. So she's got a couple of choices here. She can, let the State of the Union go ahead, or she can disinvite the president. I mean, if she really doesn't want him up there on Tuesday with a forum to be able to talk about all the things he wants to talk about, then she's going to have to disinvite him. That would be precedent setting. And I'm not sure how that would go over with the
John,
nation.
Can I ask you, because, I mean, if you move on to the idea of getting this whole thing resolved, which is really the backdrop to the whole State of the Union thing. There's all this talk about, there's got to be a big idea out there for resolving this, some big deal that everybody could come together on. I believe it was Axios had this story about Republicans floating an idea of green cards for those 700,000 DACA recipients, that maybe that's something, a big deal that would make this all kind of come to a conclusion. What are you hearing on that front? Is any of that real?
Well, in terms of big deals, the State of the Union is not it. It's not part of the big deals. So let's put that to the side. But this idea of green cards or some sort of path to status or citizenship for DACA recipients, that's something that's a non-starter among most of the president's base and among a large swath of Republicans in Congress. Now, you bring these bills to the floor and you open them up to the amendment process. Anything can happen. So who knows what would ultimately get passed by the Senate. And then the House could either take up the Senate bill or they could even start action on their own if they wanted to. But I think what's interesting here, Melissa and Harris, is this idea that we're beginning to see some movement in Congress at the very least. But the president, again, throwing down the gauntlet to Nancy Pelosi to say, if you don't want me there on Tuesday night, you've got to disinvite me. We'll see what happens. There are also some Democrats that are open to the idea of what the president is talking about. The quibble here seems to be, and this is both in the House and in the Senate, is whether you can negotiate on something while the government is closed or whether out of principle you have to have the government open before you go ahead with negotiation. Here's what Hogan Gidley, the deputy press secretary, said this morning.
They're playing politics with people's lives here. It's dangerous for the country. And there are 800,000 federal workers that by midnight tonight, if a deal is not reached, they are guaranteed to miss a second paycheck in a row. That's unacceptable. Democrats have to come to the table to work with us to fix it.
One of the Democrats that is considering the president's offer is West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. He's always been a centrist Democrat in a state that President Trump won by 40 points. So sometimes the president's ideas are good ideas for the state of West Virginia. But the leadership on the Democratic side in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, still firmly with his heels dug in on all of this, saying no negotiation until after the government is open, and he is still firmly opposed to any idea of a border barrier. Listen here.
We are aghast that he wants this giant 30-foot wall to be the symbol of America. I tell President Trump, I've told him to his face, we want the symbol of America to remain the Statue of Liberty, freedom, equality, not a divisive wall. And we will fight for that. Fight for that, we will.
But the president tweeting this morning about what he sees as the benefit of a wall, saying, quote, without a wall, our country can never have border or national security. With a powerful wall or steel barrier, crime rates and drugs will go substantially down all over the United States. The Dems know this, but want to play political games. Must finally be done correctly. No cave. The president saying he's not going to cave. And Eric, I attended last week a briefing at Customs and Border Protection where they were talking about the need for a wall, particularly in some areas along the Rio Grande Valley and westward of that in Texas. And the thing is that they want it really to interdict drugs and other illegal cross-border activity. But because the wall cannot be built, and we talked about this yesterday, in the floodplain of the Rio Grande, that means that a lot of these migrants from Central America, the Northern Triangle countries, would be able to get their feet on U.S. soil long before they got anywhere near a border barrier. And those are people who want to be apprehended by the Border Patrol. So while this is designed to stop illegal cross-border activity, drugs, human smuggling and the like, it would not stop the idea of these migrants coming across, putting feet on U.S. soil so they can be apprehended by the Border Patrol.
State of the Union address is set up so the president can explain just what's going on with our government and just what's going on around the globe. The president has an incredible story to tell about how far we've come in this country economically, in a national security capacity. All of those things are impacting Americans positively. And when we have an announcement on that, we'll let you know. But Nancy Pelosi is trying to play politics with that venue.
If she maintains the invitation, which she has not completely taken the invitation off the table, but she's made a suggestion that he does not deliver that on the House floor. What's the president's plan B there? How would he deliver it, or where would he deliver it?
There are many ways he can deliver the State of the Union address. I'm not going to get ahead of anything he would announce. But the fact is, you just pointed out, she has not canceled it. She asked us to postpone it, and she did that without any input from national security. In fact, she even said that Secret Service couldn't protect the speech, which is absolutely ridiculous. If the Secret Service can protect the President of the United States on a trip to Iraq, chances are they can protect the American president in the hall.
He is in Washington for us because Nancy Pelosi has just responded to President Trump's letter in which he said, I'll be there on January 29th, next Tuesday. I'm going to give the State of the Union address. And we should just do this on location, on time, just like we planned. When you first invited me, she has now responded. Peter, what did she say?
She said, no, that's not going to happen. And even though the president and the Speaker of the House only work about 2 miles apart here in Washington, D.C., they have been communicating with letters, and we just got one that the Speaker of the House sent back to the president just a few minutes after the Republican leader in the House, Kevin McCarthy, introduced a resolution, a concurrent resolution that would have to be passed by the House and the Senate to let the president go forward with the State of the Union next Tuesday night. She says that's not going to happen. I'm going to read from the letter. Dear Mr. President, when I extended an invitation on January 3rd for you to deliver the State of the Union address, it was on the mutually agreed upon date, January 29th. At that time, there was no thought that the government would still be shut down. In my further correspondence of January 16th, I said we should work together to find a mutually agreeable date when government has reopened, and I hope we can still do that. I'm writing to inform you that the House of Representatives will not consider a concurrent resolution authorizing the President's State of the Union address in the House chamber until government has opened again. I look forward to welcoming you to the House on a mutually agreeable date for this address when government has been opened. Sincerely, Nancy Pelosi. So if the president still wants to go forward with the State of the Union address, he's going to have to find somewhere else. There has been talk on the Hill among the president's allies about maybe going somewhere outside of Washington, D.C. that could be meaningful to the agenda and to the platform that he's trying to push. But we don't have any specifics yet about where that might be, just not in the building behind me.
President Trump blasting Speaker Nancy Pelosi just moments ago for canceling the State of the Union he was planning to deliver in the House chamber on Tuesday.
The State of the Union speech has been canceled by Nancy Pelosi because she doesn't want to hear the truth. She doesn't want the American public to hear what's going on. And she's afraid of the truth. We were planning on doing a really very important speech in front of the House and the Senate, the Supreme Court. So we just found out that she's canceled it. And I think that's a great blotch on the incredible country that we all love. She blamed security, but she knew it wasn't a security problem. I just got back from Iraq. I was very safe in Iraq, and I felt very safe. We had great security. If we can handle Iraq, we can handle the middle of Washington. We'll do something in the alternative. We'll be talking to you about that at a later date. But what she's doing to the American people, what she's doing to our Constitution is a disgrace.
What was that movie, Greg? You Can't Handle the Truth.
Yes, Jerry Maguire. I'm kidding. I know, I'm joking. Are you asking me a question?
No, I'm just teeing you up.
I'm ecstatic. As you know, I'm ecstatic. This is all coming together. I didn't want to go to D.C. D.C. is like the worst ride in America's amusement park. There's no fun in D.C., just walking tours. Walking tours. It's the most overrated capital in America, and I include Sacramento in that. This is another thing. Thank you, Donald Trump, that he has disrupted and gotten off our plate. Things that last year it was a correspondence dinner. We didn't need that. We don't miss it. We're not going to miss the State of the Union. He should do it skywriting. That's he should skywrite his State of the Union, or he should do it in a Twitter thread. That's easy too. But you don't need this stupid pomp and circumstance. Thank you.
What would the skywriting say? Build the wall and crime will fall.
Yes, exactly. And then we're done. But I mean, he's gotten rid of the correspondence dinner, State of the Union. I think he should get rid of stubborn belly fat and embarrassing back fat. Those diarrhea pills that come in the little pods that you can't open. Get rid of that. TMV. Get rid of that. We're done.
What is TMV?
DMV.
DMV.
And TMZ.
Okay, no, don't get rid of TMZ. We love you, Harvey. So this is a big blotch.
He's big blotch.
Because this has never happened before, and he's checked it out, and I don't know if it has. He's saying that he was safe in Iraq when he went during the shutdown. Why can't D.C. be just as safe?
Well, I always thought that Nancy Pelosi had a stronger argument saying we're not doing the State of the Union until the government's back open, but you and I'll work on a date for when the government's back open. We'll invite you down. And she's still kind of saying that. But when her first letter said, please come give a State of the Union on January 29th. The second one said, I think it would not be a good idea because of security concerns. And he's right. Like, that was lame. The security concerns are not real. I think she would have been even stronger at that point to be able to say, no, we're not doing this until the government's reopened. These people deserve to be paid for the work they're doing. So when that's done, you can come back.
And she sent the first letter during the shutdown, Juan. So the president's saying, well, why are you using this as an excuse when you invited me during the shutdown in the beginning?
Well, I don't buy the security thing at all. But, I mean, clearly what's going on here is the government's not functioning. There are real issues at play. I mean, you stop and look at it. It's not only I think it's 800,000 not being paid, the contractors. Today we heard about IRS agents who are not reporting but getting passes so they can go out and get, small jobs to help pay the bills. FBI says child trafficking, terror investigations are being impeded, according to the FBI union. The airports we know about, the Coast Guard we know about. To me, this is a real problem. I mean, it's even the State Department says they were going to have a conference on border security. They can't have that. So this is, Senator Mark Warner said, stop stupidity, stop inflicting shutdown, transferring unnecessary pain and inflicting damage. And you see this in the polls. 71% of Americans say this wall is not worth this shutdown. This is hurting the country. But I think, what's interesting to me, it's hurting President Trump.
Well, if it's not worth it,
then you should be thrilled.
I'm not thrilled. I'm kind of sad our country's in this place.
If all that stuff's happening, though, that you just laid out, why don't Democrats just get on board and support all the stuff that they supported years ago that he's proposing? I mean, they all are on record as having supported not only the border security measures, but now they're having to say no, we don't want humanitarian aid. No, we don't want relief for TPS and DACA recipients just because Trump proposed it. I mean, I agree that having all of these things stagnant is bad, but what he put forward was something that was completely palatable. And, I think Nancy Pelosi, she's a spiteful one sometimes. She is. And she didn't want Trump to come out. I don't love the State of the Union. I agree with Greg. I think it's boring. I think they somehow make presidents for some reason to look like monarchs in that moment. It's painful to watch, but it is an opportunity to get out there and have a lot of people tune into something who typically wouldn't tune in. And I don't think she wanted President Trump talking about the aspects of crime and the fact that he put forth something that had the DACA relief, that had the TPS relief, so that voters in the middle could say, wait a minute, he did put something forth that could have been palatable to us. Why isn't she biting?
Well, let me just
but the
say
thing is, he gave a primetime address laying out all those things except for the stuff that he offered on Saturday.
Yeah.
And it didn't move the needle at all.
But I think
against her. So I think that
true.
if she's just being politically smart, I mean, I'm not saying that it's like good policy, but if you've been politically smart, like, why would you move?
That's true, but I know a lot of people that tune in. Like, I watch news all the time. We watch news all the time, but I know a lot of people that don't watch news a lot. But when it says
true.
State of the Union, they will tune in.
But they have no
every
choice.
single channel.
They have no choice. It's on every channel.
Exactly.
It's disgusting.
You could read a book if you want, but I think a lot of people
I actually do read books.
But I will
Juan.
say this to you, that when you see this argument about crime in the wall that the president was tweeting about today, it is so fallacious. I mean, the statistics say that crime, in fact, violent crime has been down over the last 20 years, even as we've seen the increase in illegal immigrants.
Why have Democrats been calling it a humanitarian crisis?
Have you missed those people straggling
about the crime, though, when they
somewhere?
didn't have a wall in El Paso, there was a lot of violent crime. They put the wall up and the crime dropped. Let's listen to what Chuck had to say about this whole hostage-taking scenario.
Or not.
The president's proposal is just wrapping paper on the same partisan package in hostage-taking taxes. Hostage-taking should not work. It's very hard to negotiate when a gun is held to your head. The American people know that President Trump is responsible for the shutdown, and now they have learned that Leader McConnell is a co-conspirator.
All right, and the president actually called Chuck Schumer a puppet of Pelosi.
Yeah.
So it looks like he's trying to drive a wedge between the two leaders.
To use his analogy, though, Americans have been held hostage by career politicians who make a nice living off this prison of two ideas. They need us to be polarized on immigration. They need you to think that having a wall means you don't like people from Mexico. They need that argument because that keeps them in power. There has to be a way of breaking out of this prison because you can't be pro-refugee, but also think maybe you should limit merit-based immigration. I'm actually more inclined to go with refugees than merit-based because refugees are more grateful. But you can actually have a compromise. Get out of this prison. No, I think that when refugees come here, they make great citizens, but you have to extreme vet. See, the compromise here is having a number of tools in that shed. It's not just this or this. That's the prison. You've got to find all these other tools.
A lot of different clubs in the bag.
Yeah, exactly.
I must say, it sounds like you're a Democrat, because that's what the Democrats are saying. We can have.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare talk about.
You're right. You're right. So where are the Democrats? You're absolutely right.
In fact, the Democrats.
Why aren't the Democrats coming forward?
Greg, they have come forward, but guess what? McConnell won't bring that forward. Now he's going to have two votes tomorrow.
Well, he won't bring it forward because the president won't sign it.
Yeah, that's exactly. So this is like a trap. You know, it's like you can't get out of the trap. And poor President Trump, he's stuck in this trap, waiting for the far-right fringe to give him permission slip to make a deal.
Well, I'm glad you feel sorry for the president, Juan. That's very compassionate.
It is. Thank you.